I'm so honored to present our research at this wonderful event. Just to briefly introduce myself, my name is Eun Cho, and I am a music educator and a researcher. I mainly do empirical research related to music education and music psychology. So my approach to music may be a little bit different from how many of you would do music. So this research that I'd like to share today is also an example of what I do. So exploring human musical experiences through a scientific investigation. This research study is part of a larger investigation on music-evoked nostalgia that the research group at the EARS at UC Riverside has been working on since 2019. And this is also a collaborative work with CMMAS. Let me begin this presentation with two short commercial video clips. So here is the first one.
You might not remember us, but we met in the 90s. We are members of Generation Y, as in yin yang, yo-yo. Life moved a little slower. Discs were square, desktop folders had personality. Extra storage space was just a zipper away. There was only one social network, but most of your friends died of dysentery. The only thing buzzing in your pocket was a pet. Until that died too. But at least the troll was still a friend. Lunch was a puzzle, not a picture. You were pumping jams, water, shoes. You didn't have to worry about a news feed full of farm animals. You were busy feeding wild animals. A haircut didn't cost $60. It cost 4 minutes.
Okay, and here is the second one.
Hello, Moto. They don't make 'em like me no more. One thing I know for sure, they don't make 'em like me no more. Like a supernova, brand new code hanging on my shoulders. I got what you need, I'm your main controller. So hop right in and don't take it slower. Get on up to my cloud, ain't nobody here's taking us down. Hit 'em with the rhythm, banging that sound. That's when we get 'em, hit the whole town. Got what you want.
Okay, so did you notice what the common themes of these two commercials? Yeah, so it is both were based on a theme of nostalgia. So nostalgia has been used as a powerful tool in advertising and marketing. It's perhaps because of the power of nostalgia in altering the consumer's emotions, attitudes, and behavior. So the underlying idea is that because nostalgia often brings back fond memories of one's remote past, it makes people, feel warm and comforting, and also make them more susceptible to feeling emotional, which further makes them feel better about the daunting present and uncertain future. And this leads people to be likely to go shopping and spend more money. So of course, nostalgia is a fundamental human experience that everyone has. However, there is no universal elements that can evoke nostalgia to everyone. In other words, what makes you feel nostalgic may not be the same with what makes me nostalgic. So think back of the two commercials that I showed you. Did any of them make you feel nostalgic to some extent? Maybe yes to some of you, and maybe a big no to some others. For me, the second commercial did bring back a lot of memories and made me feel nostalgic because the Motorola Razr was so hot in my college years, and I have very fond memories related to it. However, the first one did not do so much to me. That's just because, I'm not from the Y generation. Plus, I did not grow up. I did not grow up in the United States, so I didn't find, what the commercial was sharing to be very relevant to myself. However, for other people who grew up with all of those things, in the commercial, may have find them very nostalgic. So, what does this mean? Nostalgia is highly personal. Nostalgia can only be evoked through stimuli that is personally relevant and meaningful. So now I'd like to talk about the definition of nostalgia. So we all know that what nostalgia is. However, how I think of nostalgia may not be the same with how you think about it. In fact, previous nostalgia research has shown a great variation in how people define nostalgia. It vastly differs from individuals to individuals, from culture to culture, and from context to context. Yet, there are several characteristics of nostalgia that researchers have commonly found. So first, nostalgia is a blend of both cognition and affect. So nostalgia is, of course, basically an emotion, so how we feel. But it also involves a lot of cognitive processes. So in order to feel nostalgic, we need to go through some sorts of cognitive processes, such as thinking about memories, from one's past. Second, nostalgia is a self-relevant emotion because the self is the central character in the memories. So, you yourself is always the central characters in your own memories. However, it is also a social emotion because the self is not always, but almost always placed in social context. So for example, when you listen to a music from your childhood, you probably recall different memories associated with the music. And many of those music would be related to, other people around you at the time, so you putting yourself in a social context. Lastly, researchers generally view nostalgia to be primarily positive emotional experience that are associated with personal memories that are fond and personally meaningful. Of course, nostalgia is kind of, bittersweet emotion, right? It's mixed emotion. However, the emotional experience that it brings to you tends to be more positive rather than negative. So now let's talk about music-evoked nostalgia. What is music-evoked nostalgia? So as the word indicates, it is about nostalgia that is evoked by music. And research has shown that among a variety of things that can evoke nostalgia, music is one of the most prevalent triggers that induce nostalgia much more quickly and easily than any other sensory cues. So hearing music from our past often transports us back in time, triggering an array of memories of events, people, places, and time periods. And that also evokes powerful emotions. So on my personal journey with the topic of music-evoked nostalgia, all began with a one-time experience that I had back in 2019. And I'd like to share that story with you. So one day, I was driving back home from my work, and it's kind of a long drive, and the traffic is not very nice. So as always, I decided to put on some music to ease my drive. And on that day, I happened to play music that I enjoyed a lot in the 1990s. And the music was something that I had not listened for so long. And on that moment, the music somehow stirred up my heart, and it brought back so many memories from, like my earlier years that I had not thought of for a long time. And after a while, when I almost arrived my town, I saw a homeless guy right by, like on the street. On that moment, because, my heart was so full with all sorts of emotions, I really wanted to do something to him. That wasn't something I would normally feel, but I ended up giving, quite a big money to him. And then I felt so good. That was something I felt strange. And I wondered what made me feel that way. And I largely attributed it to the music that I listened to. So that's where I began to decide to study music-evoked nostalgia. So with this specific experience in my mind, I developed a research based on a hypothesis that listening to nostalgia evoking music may affect how we feel, how we think, and ultimately how we behave. So, carrying out my own experience into research, I aimed to investigate how listening to nostalgia evoking music affects listeners' donation decision making, specifically looking through their donation amount. So basically, how much one gives to others who are in need. So it is an experimental research. So all of our participants took part in our online experiment. And the participants were 85 UC Riverside undergraduate students and another 99 undergraduate students attending universities in the area of Morelia, Mexico. So the experiment involved two separate phases. So one is online initial survey, and the other one is music listening experiment. So once they submitted the initial survey, we scheduled a one-on-one meeting with our experimenter. And then once they came to the meeting, they did the music listening experiment. And the meeting took place on Zoom. So let me just show you the experiment design more specifically. So this is the initial online survey. So the left side here is the English version, and the other one is the Spanish version. So let me show you what it looked like. So the survey consisted of demographic questions and then a scale to measure their financial well-being. So, and then another scale to measure their nostalgia proneness. So how one is prone to experience nostalgia in their everyday lives. And lastly, they were asked to report 5 pieces of music that may bring back memories from their past, particularly their teenage years. So on the experiment day, when the participants arrived, they first filled out another long questionnaire, which measured their mood at the moment and their empathy level, their moral identity, and personality traits. So after filling out the questionnaires, they listened to the music that they reported in the online survey for 15 minutes. And at the end of the music listening, they filled out 2 questionnaires. So one is to measure their emotional experiences while listening to the music, and the other one is to measure their nostalgic experience while listening to music. So the ratings for the nostalgic experience was the indication of music-evoked nostalgia. After that, we gave them a compensation for their study participation. So in the case of US participants, they received US $20, and the Mexican participants received 100 peso. After that, we showed them a video clip of people in need who are living in their community. And then they were asked to consider making donation using the money that they received. And this donation task was completely anonymous. So here are some of the results from this experiment. First, in terms of the donation amount, the US participants donated about $10, so out of $20, so around 50% of the money that they received. And the Mexican participants donated about 76 peso, so it's like 76% of the money they received. And then ratings for music-evoked nostalgia from both samples were pretty similar. So about 5.5 scores out of 7, which means that the participants experienced pretty intense nostalgia while listening to the music. And just a reference, another research reported that the average rating for the college students' nostalgic experience in a typical day, so not music related, was about like 4 scores. So nostalgia experience during music listening in our study was obviously high. So my main interest was to see if these two variables have any relationships. So the donation amount and music-evoked nostalgia. However, because there can be a variety of factors that can influence participants' donation decision, I considered a number of different factors as possible confounding factors. So first one is the emotional experiences. So what kinds of emotions the participants experienced while listening to the music. And I also considered the characteristics of the music that they listened. So because it could be possible that the kinds of music directly affects participants' donation decision making. So these are context level variables, meaning that they are associated with the moment of the participants' music listening. Now let's turn into the person level variables. So those are something that each individual possesses, which is not context specific. And those are, like, for example, the demographic information such as age, sex, and ethnicity, and personality traits, because people with certain types of personality traits may donate more than others. Also, perceived financial well-being, so how one feels secured about their own financial situation. And empathy, and moral identity, because I assumed that people with a higher level of empathy, or like people who place it more importance on morality, may donate more than others. Lastly, nostalgia promise. Lastly, I also considered participants' mood state, like when they arrived for the experiment, because one's mood is known to influence people's decision-making considerably. So in order to see if any of these factors have a relationships with participants' donation amount, I analyzed the data using a statistical analysis technique named regression. So the results revealed that in Mexican sample, music evokes nostalgia to be the strongest predictor of the donation amount, while agreeableness, one of the personality traits, and participants' perceived financial well-being played some roles in predicting their donation amount. This means that people who were more friendly, compassionate, and cooperative, so that's the indication of agreeableness here, and people who felt more secured about their financial situation tended to donate more money among the Mexican sample. of course, people who experienced higher level of music-evoked nostalgia donated more. And here is the result from the US sample. So consistent with the Mexican data, music-evoked nostalgia was the strongest predictor of the donation amount. However, empathy also appeared to be a significant predictor of the donation amount. So basically, people who had a higher level of empathy donated more. So what all of these results tell us? So first, we found that the Mexican participants donated more than their US counterparts. So does it mean that the Mexican participants were more generous? Well, I mean, that could be true or not true. And there are several things to consider to understand the different amount of donation between the two samples. So first thing that I could think of is the differences between US $20 and 100 peso. So 100 peso is equivalent to US $5, and the US participants received $20. So it is possible that the larger amount of money that they received may have give the participants a higher desire, a more desire to keep the money for themselves, because there are a lot of things that they can do with $20. Or it is also possible that the personal factors have affected the participants' donation decision, which I will talk in the next slide. So the results showed that in addition to music-evoked nostalgia, some of the personal factors have also influenced participants' donation decision making. So in both samples, there were a few personal factors that appeared to be significant factors in predicting participants' donation amount. So in the Mexican sample, agreeableness and perceived financial well-being appeared to be significant factors. On the other hand, participants' empathy level was a significant factor in the US sample, in addition to music-evoked nostalgia. So the different donation amounts between the two samples can be related to the role of these personal factors. Nonetheless, the results from both samples indicated that participants' nostalgic experience while listening to nostalgia-evoking music appeared to be the strongest predictor of their donation amount. This is very promising finding that demonstrates the potential power of nostalgia evoked by music. But why is that? Like, why music-evoked nostalgia has such a strong potential in people's donation decision making? Our data suggested that while listening to nostalgia-evoking music during the experiment, our participants generally experienced various positive emotions, like feeling excited, enthusiastic, inspired, proud, and strong. So the positive emotions experienced during music listening may have affected their mood, attitude, and therefore their decision making for the donation. In conclusion, our research demonstrated the potential power of music-evoked nostalgia in altering listeners' decision making related to a donation. So while it has an important implications to various fields, such as business and social work like NGOs, my interest as a music researcher is to confirm how powerful music is to human beings. So like the power of music, that it directly and indirectly affects how we think, how we feel, and even how we behave. So I would like to suggest to you that when you have a bad day or when you feel weary, Why don't you find some time to listen to music from your earlier years, like the times that you had all your happiness? I believe that that will bring you great comfort and pleasure, and also it will motivate you to live a better life. Thank you.